billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I greet you, my brothers and sisters, with the noble and universal greeting of peace, the greeting that has been used by the prophets and messengers of our universal creator, Almighty Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Indeed, it is a privilege and pleasure to continue our discussions about this most important aspect of benefiting ourselves. We can benefit ourselves in many ways, but benefiting ourselves spiritually or to benefit the soul is the highest kind of application that you can engage in. There are people who can benefit their bodies, which is wonderful, and there are people who benefit their finances, which is wonderful. People who benefit themselves in so many different ways, and worldly ways, which is okay too, But the Quran tells us about benefiting our own souls, that to engage in spiritual practice benefits our own souls for those who benefit their own souls, and compared to those who wrong their own souls. So while we are alive and we focus on our souls and benefiting our souls, which is very similar to what we spoke about last week, which is bringing to Allah a purified heart. That if we are focused on bringing to Allah a purified heart, then it is the same thing as being a benefit to your soul. If you don't bring to Allah a purified heart, that means you're not being a benefit to your own soul. So this is something we're talking about here, that while we are alive, we have an opportunity to bring to Allah a purified heart and to play a beneficial role for our souls. And I've come to realize that this is the most important thing I can do. Not in somebody told me that and I'm telling you that, but in my own life awareness and experiencing. I'm experiencing being a benefit to my own soul. You understand? It's not something you just do and hope and wish and one day maybe you'll see the benefit or not. When you benefit your own soul, you actually experience it. And I've been describing this as the butterfly, the spiritual butterfly, the human being that is committed to the path of human excellence, the human being that is really humble before God, the human being that is really aware of the power of God, the human being that is really aware of the privileging of God in our universal creator Almighty Allah, the human being who is really aware of the gifting nature of Allah and the gifts given to us, the favors and blessings given to us. You see, when you live your life, it's unlikely. In fact, it's not going to be so that you're just born and you're going to be this person who is aware of Allah and experiencing security. It's not going to be that. According to the Quran, after Adam and Eve went into this belief in needing, God said, you don't need to eat that. No, we got to eat that. We need to. Something is necessary. Human beings became insecure because of their belief in need, that something is needed. Now, what we are talking about here is we have Allah, and Allah is sufficient for us. Nothing is needed. So when we are spiritually developed, when we bring into Allah a purified heart, when we are benefiting our own souls, what happens is that we become aware at this level. It's a very different way of being in the world when you are aware. And there's a very different way of thinking and feeling and behaving and relating and responding in the world when you are aware. The Quran tells us, those who are aware of Allah, those who remember Allah, in their hearts there is security, there is assurance. You get what I mean? If you don't remember Allah, you won't experience assurance. But don't feel bad, because everybody is insecure until guidance comes to them and until they receive the guidance. If they, guidance, you don't receive the guidance, you can't become secure. All of us are insecure and we all can become secure. A mu'min is one who is secure. I am more secure today than I've ever been. So the spiritual butterfly is the human being that is operating at a higher level of awareness, higher level of experiencing, higher level of expressing, higher level of relating and responding, higher level in the world of applying themselves. They are secure and they're applying themselves to move further, they are progressing in this world, benefiting their own souls. The Quran tells us that Allah has put tranquility into the hearts of the believers as they move from one level of faith to a greater level of faith. So there's no such thing as, oh yeah, I got faith, because I said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. The Quran says don't say you believe when faith has not entered into your heart. Rather say you are submitted in religion, you're submissive in religion, I follow religion of Islam. On a census form it asks you what's your religion, you say Islam. What's your religion, you say Islam. I don't even think that's submissive. I think that's just saying something, But there are people who are submissive in the religion of Islam. But the Quran is saying that's not enough to say that you're a believer. Your faith has to enter into your heart. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about actually being a benefit to yourself, to your soul. Actually going beyond insecurity and experiencing security. And I can tell you that has been my personal experience. I know what I was and who I was and how I lived. And I know who I am now, and I know how I feel now, and I know how I live now. And I know that I'm choosing these days to express like compassion and patience and love and mercy for others, because I am aware that we are human beings and we're given the privilege to experience being godly. We can experience the essences that Allah is. We can experience being peaceful, and we can experience being patient, and we can experience being loving, and we can experience being kind and generous and giving, merciful, forgiving and pardoning. We can experience that towards others. See? And so when you are in a spiritual butterfly state, it's very different because you're secure and you are having this nur, this light. You are spiritually enhanced and you're not controlled by the world. You're not trying to control the world. You're not living in fear. You're not living in worry. The Quran says, who are the friends of Allah? Those who do not grieve, nor do they fear. Get what I mean? They are secure. The friends of Allah. And this is a path of friendship with Allah. This is a path of intimacy with Allah. This is a path of closeness with Allah. This is a path of being more close to Allah, who is closer to you than your own jugular veins, than being closer to the creation of Allah. You get what I mean? So we all have the potential, shukr to Allah, to remember. Last week I spoke about having forgotten. That when Adam and Eve ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they became insecure. They forgot. The children of Adam and Eve forgot Allah. And the Quran says how important it is to remember Allah. How important it is to return to Allah. How important it is, if you're in the remembrance of Allah, Allah will remember you. And if you are in the remembrance of Allah, you will be successful. And remember Allah. You get what I mean? Now this is an actual awareness and experiencing of Allah. Right? We are talking about Allah awareness, really being aware of Allah and experiencing Allah consciousness. That's what we're talking about as a believer. We're not talking about like a child who's just learned things in childhood about God and have their ideas and just live out their ideas about Allah or God. We are talking about the real awareness of Allah, the actual awareness of Allah, the experience that when you remember Allah, your heart will experience assurance. You will feel secure. They asked the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, tell us about a mu'min, tell us about a believer, tell us about one who is secure. And he said, a believer is one whom everybody is safe from. A believer can be trusted because they're not controlled by Satan's whisperings. You get what I mean? They're not like Satan is telling them, be insecure, be afraid, control them. They don't behave badly to themselves, to their bodies, to their lives, to others. A believer has got nur, has got light. But a believer didn't start off as a believer. You become a believer because you are in a fallen state, you're in a forgotten state, you're in an unaware state, you're sleeping. And so we've been talking about human beings, us, you and me and others, that before faith enters into our hearts, that's where we start off. And I said that there are people who are people who are in the denial of Allah, the kufr. And there are people who associate partners with Allah. They have beliefs about a God. They have beliefs about God, but they relate to God not as relating to our universal creator. They have ideas of God, and so that's not God, and they are not really relating to God and responding to our universal creator, Almighty Allah. They're not. But they think they are. They're astray. And then there's the hypocrites who use the name of Allah, they use the name of the Prophet, and they use the name of Islam, they use the name of the Quran. But they too are not different from those hypocrites who say they believe, but they only lie to themselves, thinking they lie to Allah and lie to others, but they only lie to themselves. There are people who actually believe they are aware of Allah and they are worshipping Allah and that they are, good Muslims and so on and so forth. But the Quran says in their hearts is a disease. The disease is expanded. They are left to stray, and whoever is left to stray, none can guide. For a long time, I tried teaching these people, saying to them that all of us have to go beyond the ways of our forefathers, especially in this country. A lot of the so-called Muslim people come from the Indo-Pak subcontinent, and we have like a history of culture that is from Hinduism and that sort of thing. And I've been saying to people that a lot of them, they say they believe, but they don't really believe. In their hearts is a disease. So we hear people saying that, my husband is learned in deen, like learned in the way of God, but he is abusive. So what's going on there is the same thing from India, right? The Indian culture. Some Indians have gone beyond that now, right? But if you look at the history, that men have been chauvinistic against women in India. Women have not been given respect in India. You get what I mean? And so you can be a very religious, cultural Indian from India and have your big all show, but your behavior towards women is very disregarding. You get what I mean? So now you'll understand why I say that, this what is called Islam in, like, mostly in some parts of the country or the world where Indian people are, is not Islam. It's Islamism. It's the same ideas, cultural and ideas before the Islamic teaching reached them. They're still perpetuating it. You get what I mean? It became a system of gurus, and it became a system of pundits. And it became a system of the chauvinism against women remained. Although Islam respects women and encourages the respect of all people, including women, particularly women, who have been traditionally treated poorly around the world, for millennia. These people, they're not following Islam. So they can tell you, we are learned in deen, we are very religious, but there is a blatant disregard to their own spouses and to women within the culture. There's so many women within the culture feeling the disrespect and experiencing the horror, but when they go to these pundits and gurus in Islamism, they are dismissed. You get what I mean? Why is that happening? You see, you'll begin to understand, because this is not real Islam. There is elements of certain ideas of Islam, and even like in India, the pundits and the gurus, like, they don't empower the people to make decisions with truth. Here we have the Quran, which guides humanity to the truth, but Maulana Guru and Mufti Pandit want to continue this, powering over other people. And so they're all about rituals. Like how it was in India. I'll tell you what prayer to do, which day to do it, how many prayers you must do. Does that sound familiar when you see sometimes forwarding messages, do this prayer, and people are just doing prayers, but they're not really conscious of Allah. You get what I mean? If you disagree with me, open your eyes and see. It's not fun to see that in our own selves. Usually people think, no, other people got it wrong, we got it right. So it takes a lot of courage for us to see that we follow the ways of our forefathers, and this is an error, that we are to submit, and we are to submit to truth, And we've got to speak the truth about us and where we are in error. And we've got to ask Allah for forgiveness. You get it? I mean, this is why there's so much of suffering in certain communities, even though they say they're Muslim. And they wonder why their prayers are not answered. The Quran says the prayers of those without faith is nothing but vain prayers. The Quran says that the hypocrites are no different from the associators. The mushrik and the munafiq are the same. There are verses that say the same thing that happens to the munafiq, same thing that happens to the mushrik will happen to the munafiq. And the reason for that is the associators, those who take idols, those who believe in gods other than God, those who have ideas of God but not really, in the experience, awareness and experience of our universal creator. And the hypocrites are the same. They're busy doing these rituals, do this, do that, do this so many times, and they're not aware of what they're doing. This is blind following from India. You understand? It's how it's been. Sometimes even in the Indian people today from India, they've gone beyond, some of them. Some of them have realized this is not the way. They've gone beyond it from other influences. But yet you have people from, the Indian continent, subcontinent, Indo-Pak subcontinent, and they have the Quran, and they have the Prophet and all, but they don't go beyond it. You can begin to see, if you look clearly, that there's hypocrisy and there's no awareness of Allah. So I'm not saying this to embarrass anybody. I'm not saying this to attack anybody. It's not my intention to attack anybody. It's my intention, if I am attacking anything, it's ignorance. If I am attacking anything, it's superstition. If I am attacking anything, it's arrogance. If I'm attacking anything, it's hypocrisy. But I'm not attacking any person in particular. We all have made errors. We all can learn. We can all grow. But not everybody is humble. Not everybody wants to say, hey, could we be modified mushriks? You understand? Because that's what a hypocrite is. They're really a modified mushrik. Have we modified the Islam that we are doing? Is it a modified type of Hinduism? And I don't mean to be insulting to any Hindu or the religion of Hinduism. I'm just saying historic facts, that women used to be thrown on the funeral pyre if they didn't get on, to be burnt if their husbands were dead, on the husband's funeral pyre. And even when laws forbade it, government laws forbade it, these women were like sitting by themselves, never even participating in society. They have no life. You get what I mean? When you're looking at a lot of women going into marriage, recently I started a new project of teaching people about how Allah created us into pairs from one soul, and that we can dwell with each other in tranquility, put love and compassion in our heart. I've been teaching people about their relationship with Allah. That's what we're doing here, actually having a relationship with Allah. Iman. Then I've been teaching people about how to relate to themselves, their bodies, their lives, how to live receiving Allah's good in this world and the world beyond. This is amal. You understand? How to relate to other human beings. This is all Islam, what I'm teaching people, from a very practical, pragmatic way. And now I'm teaching people about the institution of marriage, and what the Prophet said, that partners are a garment to each other, which you won't see. A lot of women are getting married as young, modified mushrik women. They're not getting married as believers. You get what I mean? And so they have this unconscious shame and unworthiness, and they still living out they haven't been empowered and emancipated beyond the superstition and ignorance of prior to Islamic teaching. This is a teaching for all humanity. Islam, the way of peace, that has been around from the time of Noah, that has been around, the deen of Allah, from the time of Abraham, that has been around with the prophets and the messengers, the deen. This is its guide to all human beings, to empower us all to be one people, submitted to Allah, to our universal creator, to live truthfully, to go beyond superstition, ignorance and arrogance, to actually shine in the world, show up and let the light shine. You understand? To show up with truth and to release the superstition, ignorance and arrogance, and to be the best people. The Quran says the believers are the best people, a light to all others. They show the way to others. But this modified Hinduism that we see in South Africa and maybe other parts of the world, and again I don't mean any kind of disrespect to anybody or anything. If the people want to continue in their ways, it's their ways. But I'm calling everybody to a universal way of human excellence, a universal way of truth, a way of actually having a relationship with your Creator, an actual relationship with the actual Creator. It's not my way. It is the way. I too came from superstition, ignorance and arrogance. I too submitted. So I'm not calling anybody in something that I started. I didn't start anything. I don't want to start anything. It's the way that has been around, that human beings, if guidance came to you and you received the guidance and you see the error of your ways, you can then move forward in a relationship with your Creator. And you can then go beyond existential abandonment, feeling alone and scared and threatened. That's what Satan wants you to feel. And you can go beyond self-abandonment. You can go beyond not having any iman and have iman. You can go beyond behaving badly to yourself, your body and your life. This is why you'll see that in the Indian community, that from the Indo-Pak, the modified mushrik, they pick and choose from the Quran. They'll say halal but not tayyib. The Quran says halal and tayyib. They'll be like, no, as long as it says halal, and we're not worried about the tayyib. Because sometimes Mufti Pandit, and Maulana Guru, they're not interested in the tayyib. They are flogging it. They have an unhealthy relationship with food. Again, I'm not mocking anybody. I'm just telling you the situation. You can see the central obesity, the big bellies, and you can see the unhealthiness of a lot of Maulana Guru and Mufti Pandit. I'm not embarrassing anybody. I'm not shaming. I'm not attacking it. I'm asking you to see. Allah says, look and see the signs. Look and see. You get what I mean? So, people are living in that way. They're picking and choosing from the Quran. They're not really teaching the teachings of the Quran. The public is just like halal, halal, halal. But is it tayyib? They've made one better than the other. Both are put in the same way. Halal and tayyib in the same verse. And it says after that, beware Satan who whispers to you. You know what I mean? So the people are not interested in being aware of Satan who whispers to us. The people don't want to hear the news, the good news. Because the Quran says it is bearing good news. The Prophet came bearing good news. What is the good news? The good news is that we can go out of the darkness into the light. The Prophet was told in the Quran, did we not find you in the darkness? And did we not guide you to the light? That the Prophet was guided to the light, and he shared that with us, and the Quran guides to the light. The Quran says it is a book for those who believe in the unseen. It is a book for those who establish regular connection with their Creator. It's a book of those who share with other people, what they've been given. The Quran says it's a book of healing of the diseases in their hearts. But those modified mushriks, they don't look at the Quran as guidance. They don't want guidance. You get what I mean? And so people are just living this unconscious concept, and Satan is winning. You understand? Because they're not bringing to Allah a purified heart. They're not bringing to Allah they're not healing their souls. They're not healing their hearts. They're not addressing their souls. They're not doing this work. So when I speak about things like this, a lot of people will get very defensive. A lot of people might even get aggressive. Who are you? Where did you learn it? Which kind of guru you are? Well, in Islam, there is no guru system. There is no priesthood in Islam. This is an innovation from India. It wasn't around at the time of the Prophet. It wasn't around thereafter. It is an Indian-made concept to addition to Islam, the guru system. You understand, the Pandit system. This hierarchy. Truth remains truth. The Quran says the truth needs no qualification. Truth is its own thing. You can either be aware of truth if you want to, or you don't want to. Truth stands clear from falsehood. Anything that I'm saying to you, if you have eyes to see, ears to hear, hearts to behold, you will understand that this is not anything against anything. If it is, it's against Satan. You understand? And Satan worship. This is for Allah, and for Allah worship. You understand? This is for humanity to come from wherever they came from, whatever tribe they came from, to go beyond the separatist illusionary ideas and this falsehood and superstitions and ignorance and arrogance, to submit, to join together as one humanity. We can all be one humanity in truth and all show up and shine. the nur, the light, if guidance comes to us. You understand? This is not another separation. I'm not starting another sect. Like there are enough sects and cults that are going on. You get what I mean? I'm just talking the truth. That if somebody wants to become aware of the truth, that what is this costing us? Remaining this caterpillar, a denier, associate, and a hypocrite. What is it costing us? We'll live and die without Allah awareness. And what does that mean? We would have failed. The Quran says they are losers. And then those hypocrites it speaks about, it says they are liars. When I first read the Quran, I thought this is a bit rough. They're liars. I was calling them liars. But now I understand, because they lie to themselves and they lie to others that they are Allah aware. In their hearts is a disease, the Quran says, and they are left to stray. They don't want to learn. So anyway, it might be that you come from, when you're listening to this, if you're listening to this, is a good sign, good for you, that you come from a denying consciousness. Maybe you came from a family that said there's no God. You don't talk about God. All we see is what we see. And that's how it is. You live and you die and you'll never be raised up again. Or you come from a family that is mushrik, having gods other than God. You know what I mean? And you think that things are God, people are God, money is God, human beings are God. You like having this relationship of appeasing God. Appeasing God, must sacrifice for God. God wants us to sacrifice. And that's in this Indian Muslim community that is Islamism. There's these ideas that are there, that God wants us to suffer. These are not Muslim ideas. The Quran says that God wants ease for you. Allah wants ease for you. It says it over, not just once. Allah wants ease for you. That Allah wants you to enjoy His favors. The Quran says, which of the favors of Allah do you deny? Do you know, when I talk to these people, how worrying it is that they talk like Allah wants you to suffer and you mustn't have a natural life and you must, it's all about living in... This is not Islam. It's coming, So anyway, you can come from a family of deniers. You can come from a family or people of associates. That means you don't have Allah consciousness or a universal spiritual consciousness of God. You don't know what that is. You don't know God. You haven't come to know God. You don't know what's going on here. You don't know what the purpose of our being here. You just have these ideas and you're carrying on. You're insecure. You're remaining insecure. Satan is whispering to you. You get taken left, right, and center. Or you might be a hypocrite. You say you believe, but you don't believe. And I'm telling you that especially in this country, it is very relevant for us to begin to see the influence that we've had and where we are, that we may come to realize the truth and receive guidance to go beyond ways that are cultural. There are, I don't know how many thousand years of, Hinduism flowing through the blood of the Muslims that have became Muslims. And Islam is a recent thing, relatively recent. Again, I'm not against Hinduism or any religion. People can choose what they want. It's got nothing to do with me. Allah says, let them choose what they choose. There's no compulsion in religion. If they choose to believe in Allah and become aware, it's fine. If they don't choose, it's got nothing to do with me. It's got nothing to do with, me. But people believe. I told you, Allah said to us that we each must bring to Him a purified heart. All that concerns me, understand, is me bringing to Allah a purified heart. All that concerns me is me purifying my soul. That's all that concerns. Is me remembering beyond the forgetfulness. It's me ascending as a human being into what Allah created us to be, beyond the descent into behaving worse than animals. That perversion and all that. That's all. Nothing concerns me about you or anybody else. Your heart has got nothing to do with me. What happens to you in afterlife, the soul condition, got nothing to do with me. So I am not here in any way to control you or change you. I'm only sharing this with you. It's my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just telling you what the Quran is saying. I'm telling you what observation. The Quran says reason, people. It says who is the worst of people if they are not those who don't reason? The people who don't reason are the lowest of creation. You know why? Because Allah gave you the ability to reason. Our universal creator created us with the faculty of reason. But people are like, no, we don't want to reason. When Abraham was reasoning with his father, his mother, his family, that these things have no power. These things we made with our own hands. We projected power onto these things. Let us not project power onto anything. Let us recognize the power of God who will give you everything. They were like, we don't want to hear this. They never said to him, you're wrong. they realized, they made these things, they made up ideas. Whether you made up with your hand or you made up with your mind ideas of God, is not really God. You are to become aware of God and experience the power of God. You get what I mean? A lot of the mushrik people and the munafiq people, and I'm not swearing anybody. This is not a swear word. It's a descriptive word. Kufr, mushrik and munafiq is not a swear word, it's not a judgmental word. It's where we all are prior to guidance coming to us, and what we can go beyond if we receive the guidance. If we have our first relationship with our Creator, if Allah is central in our life beyond anybody or anything, if we take no gods but God, if we see no authorities but Allah, you see, then we go into this cocoon of learning and growth and development. We become aware. Guidance comes to us. We start saying, hey, what's going on here? What's going on here? I'm spiritually impoverished. I'm not showing up and shining. I'm not feeling secure. I'm feeling threatened. In my heart is a disease. I don't want this disease to be expanded. I don't want to be left to stray. Who Allah guides, none can lead astray. And who Allah does not guide, nobody can lead aright. You get what I mean? So until we become aware of ourselves and we are in error, and that means something to us, and we realize, hey, we don't want to live how we lived our whole lives, to be the same person we were, same thinking, same feeling, same acting, same living. And some of us, we can see the perversion in us. Some of us know what we do. You understand that when nobody's watching, the stealing, the cheating, the lusting, the perversions that's there. A lot of people are rushing to the places of worship, but they go there to alleviate their own guilt. Oh, we're so nice, self-righteousness. This is what happened at the time of Musa alayhi salam. The people, the rabbis and the scribes, the people who are supposed to be teaching people about truth, in their hearts was a disease. They were hard-hearted. But then they acted holy-moly. And they started being self-righteous. We know, we're better than others. And that's why I say sometimes Maulana Guru and Mufti Pandit, they act like they know more than the Prophet. The Prophet was humble. He said, I don't know. Of that knowledge, I don't know. But you see these Pandits and Gurus in Islamism, they're like, we know. Our way is right. You can't see the sickness and the disease. Maybe sometimes you can see it on their face. Maybe sometimes you'll see it on their body. This person is not right. But they got you. You with them, and you can't see. You're worshipping Satan, you can't see. The Quran talks about what happens to people like this after they die. That they will tell to these people who misled them, hey, why did you do that to me? Why did you mislead me? And they will say, we couldn't help us, we couldn't help you, don't blame us, you chose to, And the people will say, Satan, you made us do these things. And Satan will say, Allah gave you a mind, you could choose, I only suggested to you. Satan is a deceiver, he's a trickster. You must be able to see the con. You understand? So if you can't see the con, that you are really not Allah aware, and, then you're not going to really move forward. You've got to admit that I am spiritually impoverished. You get what I mean? That's where it starts. You've got to say, I could be another way of being. I could live another way of living. I could experience another way of living. I want to be that high-functioning human being that Allah created me to be. I want to be the person who lives with Iman and Amal and is male or female, that supports a life tayyibun, that has a life tayyibun. You get what I mean? You must be able to say that my view currently, how I'm living, is a very limited view. I have forgotten. I am yet to remember. The Quran says, remember. If you fail to remember, yours will be a depressed life. So when you see spiritual effects of spiritual impoverishment, begin to notice that. I don't feel good. I'm angry. I'm afraid. I'm craving. So what I want to speak about a little bit, is how do we proceed from this? Because I have people coming to me and asking me, they say to me, you know what? I'm trying so hard to change myself. I'm trying so hard to change myself or my situation. And then I remind them, we have no power. Nobody has any power except Allah. We can't change and control anybody or anything. No, we can't change and control. I say to people, nothing in this world has power. No, things in this world have power. Now, this is where Satan will whisper to you. Satan doesn't want you to humble yourself. Remember, when I said to you just now, that you have the opportunity to see the error of your ways, to say, there's a more secure version of me. I can show up in the world as a true believer. Beyond any religious identity, I can be one who is aware of God and has a relationship with God. I can first be the creation of God before I'm a father, a mother, a son, a daughter, a husband, a wife, a teacher, a plumber, or whatever. A businessman, a crooked businessman, whatever it is. You know what I mean? I can first know myself before any kind of identity and role I play in the world. And some of these Maulana Gurus and Mufti Pandits, they abuse their position. You hear stories. I'm not against anybody who says they are a Maulana or a Pandit or a Guru or whatever it is. I'm saying that this, for those who know they are, they pretend to believe. They feel that power that everybody has given to them and they abuse it. I'm talking about those people who know that they don't believe, but they are in these positions and they take advantage of this position. They take advantage of people in these positions and they know how to manipulate. There are plenty of people like this in all religions. They know that the people project power onto them and they then abuse that power that they never had, that people project onto them. So I'm talking about us beginning to realize that there's another way of being, there's another way of living, there's another way of acting and interacting. There's a higher version of us. It's called a believing version. It's called a rejoicing version, that is celebrate Allah's greatness and graciousness. There's a more humble version of you. There's a version of you that's in awareness of Allah's power. To be aware of Allah is to be humble, right? If you're not humble, you can't be aware of Allah. No person who continues to remain arrogant will ever get closer to Allah. If you say, no, I'm right, maybe you're wrong, maybe you that, but not me, then you remain in darkness. But if you don't say, that we are all sinners, no matter who it is. The Prophet was said, ask for forgiveness for yourself and for the believers. The Prophet said, Allah forgive me and Allah protect me and my people from shirk. Protect me. He didn't say, oh, I'm the Prophet, I will never commit shirk. He said, protect me, the Prophet said. The same dua Ibrahim alayhi salam made. He said, protect me and my people from shirk. Protect us from shirk. So if the Prophet made a dua like that, Mufti Guru and all carrying on, doing the act, pomp and ceremony, looking the part and all that sort of thing. Some of them are celebrity gurus, like the gurus that left India and they went into America and they started like going out there, ended up with lots of limousines and thrown cash and all that. So this happens in the Islamism cult as well. They are celebrity gurus. People throw money at them and they're like living it up and all that nice pomp and ceremony. But it's not going to benefit them in this world, really. It's not going to benefit them in the world. You're not helping the people. If you can say that you are a person of God, you got to be a benefit to you and start with yourself. Start with your family. Start with the people around you. Start with the people you care. Give them the da'wat. Give them the invitation to what? Not Islamism, but to true Islam. By showing them what it's done for you, that you've been humble. So there's a more humble version of me that I'm being now that I wasn't. And for you and for everybody. And there's a more God-aware version of you through that humility and through recognizing the power of Allah. The power of Allah. Now Satan doesn't want you to recognize the power of Allah. He wants you to continue to believe you have power. You can change things, you can change people. Satan wants you to believe this world has power. Satan wants you to believe money has power. People liking you has power. All this currency that we give into the world, that I need this from the world. Like Adam and Eve, we need that apple. We got to have it. Allah said, you don't need it. No. We need it. We need that to be okay. With money, we're okay. With somebody loving us, we're okay. If somebody's taking care of us, we're okay. Our okayness has got nothing to do with anybody or anything. It's got to do with our Creator. Our awareness of Allah. When you become aware of Allah, your universal Creator, and He's relating to you, and you respond to Allah. The key here is to be aware of Allah's relating to you, and you respond to Allah. This is what a believer is, one who responds to Allah, because they really are aware of Allah. Now you can't be aware of Allah if you're worshipping Satan, if you want the money to have power, people to have power, this world to have power, your identity to have power, your image to have power. If you think you or anybody in this created world is real or has power, is actual, You don't know that Allah alone is the actual. Allah alone is the real. Allah alone really exists, who has been, will always be. We are temporary beings, created beings in this world. We will live and we will die and we will be raised up again. We are answerable to Allah. You understand? We did not give ourselves anything. We did not give ourselves our lives. We did not give ourselves our existence in this world through death and beyond. We can't cause us to be, and we can't continue us in our being. You see, when somebody is in the trance, they take authorities from among themselves. You get what I mean? They look to people, gurus and mupandits, in terms of, I'm talking about Islamism, not talking to the Hindus out there. I don't mean any, go your way, go peacefully, do your thing. I'm not judging your thing. If you don't like the truth of what I'm saying, you don't like the truth of what I'm saying, but it's the truth that I'm saying. You know what I mean? So, we are to reclaim where we projected power out, where we attributed significance, where we made some exaggerated importance. What have we made more important than Allah? Who have we made more important than Allah? The Quran says, Iyaka na'budu. It opens up, the opening, Fatiha. Fatah is the opening, is the beginning. That Thee alone do we worship, Thee alone do we turn to. You see, you got to start recognizing a few things, which category you are in. And I was in all three. And you got to recognize that you are spiritually impoverished. You got to recognize that in your heart is a disease. You can see fear, worry. You can see when you think of Allah, you don't feel assured. You can see that you don't know Allah. Even though you're busy doing the rituals, even though you're busy carrying on, that's the modified mushrik in you. That's not the God aware. For the first 12 years of the Prophet's prophetic mission, over 50% of his prophetic mission, there was no rituals. There was no organized religion. There was Allah awareness. There was submission. You get what I mean? Which madrasa you go to that teaches you to submit? Because these institutions are guru systems generally coming from that. I'm not saying there's no value in them. But they're not teaching people to submit. They're not teaching people, this is what it means. Don't take gurus among us. Don't make us gurus. We're not gurus. They're not guiding the people to the teaching of the Quran to submit, to have a relationship with Allah. They don't teach people to have a relationship with Allah. That, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Claim refuge with Allah from Satan, the accursed. They're like inadvertently telling the people, claim refuge with me. Come to me. You don't know the Quran. You will never know the Quran. Don't go to that other guru. You know how gurus are competitive like that? Guru rivalry. You can see it in the Indian people. And they have this guru rivalry. Our guru. This guru will say, celebrate Eid on this day. That guru will say, no. And then some gurus get together with other gurus and create a committee. All that sort of thing. Instead of guiding the people, bringing the people together. The people are not interested. These people who are into gurus, they're not interested in losing power. They worship Satan. They don't want people to come together. They don't want to come together. The Quran says, beware of Satan who puts animosity in your hearts for your brother. You understand? They're not interested in the message of the Quran. They're interested in being gurus and pandits, and they're interested in controlling the people. They're not interested in the people bringing to Allah a purified heart. They're not interested. I haven't heard in my life a true lecture on Iman. I can't tell you that I'm not saying there hasn't been given. I'm just saying where I was, I never heard it. A true lecture on submission. I never heard anybody telling us about this is where we are in the evolution of things. Our history and how it has affected us. The challenge of where we are. I've never heard one person. Okay, I heard one guy on a radio once. I was doing a radio interview. And he said it's in the attributes of Allah. It's not about this, we call them mullahs. And I was like, what is this guy going on about? He says, the mullahs are the problem. The mullahs are the problem. I said, what do you mean the mullahs are the problem? My mother's family is the mullahs, and sometimes I feel that they are a problem too. But, when he was saying mullahs, it wasn't my mother's family. It was this system of people claiming to be purveyors of truth, but not really living and being like the Prophet. I remind you, people think to have a beard on your face is being like the Prophet. This is the travesty. When you come from India, you get taught things like this, that it's not about your conduct, it's not about living with integrity. Why do you think these people are so disrespected in society? Why do you think people they look down upon them? Because the Muslims of the past, the real Muslims, contributed to society, they contributed to science, they contributed to the development of humanity. These people have got their own things going on in their own little ivory towers with their own people, and it's not really serving the people in the world. You get what I mean? What I'm saying is, we don't say, Auzu Guru, or Auzu Pandit, or Auzu Maulana, Auzu Mufti. We say, Auzu Billah, Auzu Billah. They don't teach us to claim refuge with Allah. They don't tell us what is our purpose here. And our purpose here is to awaken, to remember. Our purpose is to remember the truth. Our purpose is to go beyond darkness into the light. Our purpose is to see the error of our ways. Our purpose is to see that we don't know the power of Allah because we've attributed significance. You get what I mean? Our purpose is to awaken, to submit, to go beyond the sleeping state of Satan worshipping, to go beyond living a superstition, ignorance, and to receive the guidance and to have an actual relationship with Allah. And that's what has happened with me. Shukr to Allah who has guided me. And I could see, I have no power. So what I'm saying in this time remaining is this. Don't try to make yourself a better person by changing yourself. If you are spiritually impoverished, admit that you're spiritually impoverished. Admit that your spiritual impoverishment is because of your failure to be aware of Allah, His greatness, His graciousness, His gifting, His gifts. The Quran says, which of the favors of your Lord do you deny? So there are people, when you're not aware of Allah, you will have a very unnatural relationship with this world. It's perversion. Sometimes the perversion is quite obvious in obvious ways, like, the perversion around sexuality that is rampant in society. But other times the perversion is a perversion of needing money to feel okay, and your life is controlled by money. Money is a central thing in your life. Or the perversion of somebody, or like somebody must look after me or take care of me, or I must take care of other people. Forgetting that Allah is taking care of us and Allah is taking care of everybody. And we all have Allah. You get what I mean? You're thinking, no, I need this person. Or making authorities other than what Allah is. And the obvious ones is having ideas of God rather than not really being aware of God. You know what I mean? We want to see that we are spiritually impoverished, and therefore our behaviors are a reflection of spiritual impoverishment. And the error is that we don't know our Creator. We haven't really become aware of our Creator. And we can start by saying that we are in error. And thankful that Allah has given us guidance. And that He doesn't say, oh, you are a denier, you are associator, you are a hypocrite, I'll turn my back against you. He says, I know that you are that, but I am merciful, I am forgiving, come, receive the guidance. Allah is the encourager of humanity. Allah is the one who is merciful. You see, when you are living in one of those three underdeveloped, spiritually underdeveloped, with a diseased heart and all that sort of thing, and not addressing your soul, you have never had a relationship with a unique being. Do you understand? Because you're always looking in the world and you're looking at people, you think about your parents, you think about your gurus and your muftis, you think about these people. But you've never become aware of Allah and His unique nature. Allah is merciful by nature. You don't have to make Allah merciful. Allah is merciful by nature. Allah is guiding by nature. Allah is forgiving by nature. You see, Allah has given us guidance freely. Every creation cannot compare in any way. We can be, as believers who choose to worship Allah, we can experience being compassionate. But Allah is the actually compassionate. We've been given the gift to experience being compassionate. But Allah is the actually compassionate. So we have never known a love. We have never known a love. And this is the thing that's not taught in Islamism, the love of Allah. A lot of Muslims internationally leave the fold of Islam, and they go for other religions because other religions talk about love. These guys talk about threat and fear and fearing hell and all that sort of thing. You know what I mean? They're not talking about Iman, Amal, a life, tayyibun. They're not talking about Allah and His nature, that He's giving us guidance, that guidance is here, and we feel grateful. We feel grateful. You see, that we don't have to be different in where we are now. We can be patient with us. Allah is patient with us. And we can know that how we are behaving, projecting power onto people, and even the mushriks and the hypocrites, when they pray to Allah, they don't pray from the power that Allah is. They project power onto Allah. That's a very big difference. when you know the power that Allah has. Allah has power over all things. The Quran says human beings were created. No, the Quran says the heavens and earth were created so that we may recognize His power. You get what I mean? Not that the heavens and earth were created for you to be blind followers and practice rituals. That we may know His power, and that He has given us, that we may recognize how gracious He is, and that we may be grateful. You get what I mean? So Allah is patient with us. We have to have a change in attitude before there's a change in us. And the Quran says, when you change what is in your heart, then Allah will change your condition. So a lot of people who are trying to not be bad, because they think it's bad to be bad, you got to first admit that you are in error, and receive Allah's compassion and mercy, and recognize His guidance. And you've got to be the person who claims the believer's refuge. You've got to say, Allah, this is where I am now. But where I can be is a believer. And I aspire to be a believer. I know this is where I am now. I'm not into Iman. I'm not into Amal. I'm not into a life tayyibun now. I've been lost in one of those three ways. But there is another way. And I am choosing that. I claim the refuge with you. I don't want to remain the same. I don't want to be ignorant. I don't want to remain foolish, superstitious, arrogant. I want to reason. I want to become aware. I want to learn. I want to go through a process of becoming aware. As I become aware of you and experience you're relating to me and I respond to you, you purify my heart. You cleanse my heart. The Quran says it, that Allah changes the behaviors of people. It's Allah who forgives us. It is Allah who transforms us. It is Allah who removes these ways. So when we don't have a relationship with Allah, we'll have a perverted relationship with this world. Whether you're a cigarette smoker, drug taker, wife abuser, rogue, criminal, rob orphans and widows, steal from wills and so on and so forth. Whatever it is, but sitting in the mosque all the time, Allah knows what you have done, but do you know what you are doing? Do you know you behave that way because you don't have a relationship with Allah? If that is something that is bothersome to you and you're like, I don't want to live here and die as a failure, I want to be a winner. I want to be on the path of receiving guidance, going through a transformation, going through a change, receiving Allah's good in this world. I want to become a believer and live as a believer, that tranquility is in my heart and Allah expands me in faith. I want to be one of those people. This is where it starts. A'udhu billahi minash shaitani. Allah has guided us. It is Satan who threatens you with insights. Satan causes you to behave in ways. It is Satan who stands on the path and renders you ungrateful. You've got to say, Allah, the first thing is not me changing me, because the mushriks are like that. You get plenty of mushriks and deniers are trying to stop smoking, and they're trying to do it, and they're trying to stop being bad. You get plenty like that. But a believer understands that first, before trying to change me or change anybody or anything, is to address the block of I'm not aware of Allah. First become aware of Allah. First go beyond superstition, ignorance and arrogance. First commit to the believer's refuge, if you choose. But it's got nothing to do with me. It's got to do with you and Allah and the world with Allah. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm not trying to change anybody or control anybody anymore. All praise, glory and thanks is due to Allah Almighty. His choicest blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukr to Allah has guided me.